For Progressive Voices, I'm John Sinton, and this is a turning point. Today, the IRA. No, not the Irish Republican Army or even a retirement savings plan. This IRA is the Inflation Reduction Act, dismissed for a time by Republicans whose political orthodoxy wouldn't allow them to acknowledge the populist, common-sense vehicle that included money for climate change studies and actions and the lowering of prescription drug prices. They poo-pooed it in debate, and not a single one voted for it. But 2 years later, they've changed their tune, and guess what? They're taking credit for a law that they disparaged and wouldn't vote for. Only Vice President Kamala Harris's tie-breaking vote in a deadlocked Senate saved this one from history's dustbin. I got old when I wasn't paying attention. Probably so gradually at first that I didn't recognize it, but I can't hit a golf ball as far as I used to. I don't see as well. My knees and hips complain a lot. Of course, as a cancer survivor, I'm really lucky to be able to write about getting old. The alternative there for a while was that someone much younger was going to eulogize me, so I'm surely lucky. But as my grandmother used to say, getting old isn't for sissies. We slow down, our joints hurt, we do yoga and stretch constantly, but if elasticity is youth, I'm those stretched out socks that dwell ignored at the bottom of the drawer. Something else about aging is the ridiculously high cost of the inevitable panoply of drugs we begin taking to manage arthritis, diabetes, cognitive decline, off-track digestion, kidney disease, heart disease, liver disease, and all the rest. Across the globe, seniors pay less for necessary meds than we do here in the United States. Big Pharma's rap has always been that to create these important new drugs, they need to spend a ton on research and development and have every right to expect a return, a good return, on risky, time-consuming R&D and testing. And it's a good answer, if only it had the added benefit of being true. The Biden administration forced a cap on insulin to make its pricing align with what the rest of the world pays for this widely used generic drug, about $35. And according to a Rand Corporation research report in 2021, we pay more than 2.5 times as much for medicine than the other 32 developed countries they surveyed. Our use of branded drugs is what drives that average because for those brand name drugs, we pay almost 3.5 times more than the rest of the countries surveyed. There's an obvious consumer fix here, which is make sure you demand generics. One of the great accomplishments of President Biden's Inflation Reduction Act was to give Medicare the ability to negotiate drug prices, a first. It took years and old Joe's Senate relationships to defeat Big Pharma's multi-decade, multi-million-dollar lobbying efforts. It's yet another example of Republicans publicly roasting him for passing a bill and then taking credit for it when it proves popular. People, themselves included, really love it. Rolling Stone details the quiet about-face. Quote, for the first 2 years after the law's enactment, Republican lawmakers bashed it, as Majority Whip Steve Scalise said, as a socialist spending spree. Earlier this month, 18 House Republicans wrote a letter to the Speaker, Mike Johnson, urging him to prioritize business and market certainty as he considers efforts to repeal or reform the Inflation Reduction Act. The signatories included, and these are all Republicans, Representatives Miller Meeks from Iowa, LaLota, Lawler, and D'Esposito from New York. They wrote that they've heard, quote, from industry and our constituents who fear the energy tax regime will once again be turned on its head due to Republican repeal efforts, unquote. So windmills in Louisiana, a battery plant in Tennessee, a Volvo plant in South Carolina, all initially dismissed by their Republican reps as inflationary, are now praised as anti-inflationary for their new tech, new jobs, and the lowering of inflation. From Rolling Stone again, quote, the widespread post-COVID economic benefits of the IRA have stood in defiance of this Republican criticism. On Wednesday, the Bureau of Labor Statistics announced that inflation had dropped below 3% in July to its lowest level since March of 2021. Weekly unemployment continues to fall, and mortgage applications have hit a 19-month high. Initially covering the 10 most prescribed drugs in America whose list prices have fallen by 38 to 79%, the government will release a list of the next 15 drugs whose prices will be reduced in February of next year. Unless you know who wins and Project 2025 is implemented, gutting our regulatory bodies by not-so-subtle contrast. As VP Harris talks economics, the former guy tells us that he is, quote, entitled to make personal attacks against her. No policies were discussed, although he did argue that he is better looking than she. Well, say what you will, political orthodoxy always winds up bowing to the potent mix of positive results and voters who love a program. For Progressive Voices, I'm John Sinton.
Progressive Voices' John Sinton has written a continuing series called A Turning Point that touches on politics, culture, and media. You can hear the short essays in the on-demand section of progressivevoices.com and on the PV app. PV brings you the best progressive audio and video in one free stream. Stephanie Miller, Tom Hartman, Randy Rhodes, David Packman, Brad Friedman, and more. Search Progressive Voices on the TuneIn app, download the free Progressive Voices app, or go to progressivevoices.com.